computer. Welcome to Feedback Fix, where we get real about the messy conversations that move us forward. We are a live podcast, which means no scripts, no do-overs, just unfiltered, honest conversations happening as they unfold. I'm Colette Revere, and today I'm sitting down with Cari Reagan, Director of Organizational and People Development, and someone who's helped people and organizations grow through honest, meaningful conversations. Welcome, Cari.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So let's just start by talking about what you're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the L&D, OD training facilitation space basically my whole career. And I work for a healthcare company in Nashville. And right now what I'm working on is leader development. I play a big role in our leadership development programs within the company. And so we have two major programs that we offer every year. And we actually just wrapped up we have an interview process, a nomination process. They have to write an essay about why they want to be considered for the program. And this was probably, from my experience with the company, this was the highest nomination year that we had. We had almost 50 nominees. And we really only have about 30 spots. And so we just finished and finalized the second class within the last week. So now it's getting, bios together and figuring out our curriculum. We try to look at like the year before every time and see like what's the feedback, what worked, what didn't. So I am in the throes of getting both of those programs off the ground, and I'm excited about it.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
Huge to have such a kind of surplus of people who are applying for that program. So how many years has that program been in effect?
Yeah, so one of the programs has been in around like 15 years, and it's really, changed and evolved. And then the other one has been around for probably about 6 years. Each of them are 12 months. We've kind of changed the timing of them. Sometimes at one point they were 18 months, but you got to find that sweet spot. And so we figured that kind of a year is really the people don't lose interest. They can commit to that. And so, so it's really evolved. And so for me, being still relatively new to the company, this is my third iteration of one. It's the third iteration of both courses. So, but this is, as every course, every cohort we've had, I've kind of played a bigger role as I've gotten more comfortable with it and stuff. And so me and my direct boss are kind of the two leadership development gurus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So talking about feedback, I'm thinking about these 20 people who applied for this leadership program and filled out an application. My guess is did some additional work for that. And you're having to let those people know that they didn't make it in this year. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, that's always the challenge. But, one of the things that we did, because we knew based on the number of nominees and based on the number of slots that we weren't going to have a space for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we did in the interview process is we talked about that. And not only that, so it's one of those things that if you're nominated, you can't have, like you can't be on a PIP or anything like that. Like you've got to be in really good standing and seen from your leadership as someone who can evolve and grow into a new role. So we knew that we were getting kind of the, high caliber folks anyway. And so one of the things that we are doing is we are going to pilot another leadership development program later this year. And if the folks that did not make the roster this time want to participate, that was kind of their what's the word I'm looking for? Like their alternative prize or whatever. But because we knew that they still, obviously they applied for the program. We know that they want development. That is such a huge thing right now. And so we didn't want to just say, okay, thanks, bye, sorry you didn't make it. So we were really thoughtful in that and communicated that in the interview process, and then actually followed up with every single person individually. Say, you know what, you weren't selected. If and we recapped, hey, there were a lot of people that were nominated. And if you're interested, please let us know if you'd like to participate in this program. And for the most part, I would say of those 20 folks who were not selected, I would say probably 17 got back to us, but there were still a couple of people that were like, nah, I don't know yet. So,
Have to let it settle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that, Cari, because I think one of the most important, from my perspective, one of the most important qualities of a leader is somebody who actually wants to be a leader, which should seem obvious, but unfortunately it's our way to promote people and give them more, career growth or whatever, is to make them leaders. And not everybody knows what that looks like or even wants to do that necessarily. So
we have that conversation all the time. You're a great individual contributor. Of course, you're going to be a great leader. And then we don't develop, and I'm not saying this specifically in the role that I'm in now, but just in the L&D space, we think that they're going to make a great leader, but yet we don't do anything to develop them. And it's really hard when you don't have experience. Being a leader is so different. And so when we don't develop them, it doesn't set them up for success.
No. And, I would argue, I'm trying to think of the leaders that I know. And I think that everyone would say, I really do, the good leaders that I know would say, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. It doesn't matter how high up, how new you are, how long you've been doing it. It's constantly evolving, and the relationships in the workplace are. So what is it that you teach people in the leadership development program? We
have everything from, and it's interesting because they actually will do towards the end of the program, they'll do a 360 feedback. Oh. Yeah. So we do that as well. It's very homegrown though. So it's only aligned with our internal core values and leadership competencies.
Okay.
It's not just, it's not generic or whatever. So, but change management, conflict management, we try to bring in a lot of our executive team to come in and talk about, what's going on in healthcare, what are the challenges, risk management, legal, things like that. So they get really an opportunity for exposure to that side of the house that maybe they wouldn't necessarily. They might be in a hospital in, West Virginia or something, and now they're getting to speak to and be on a call with or in person with our company COO. And so that's really the thing that sets these programs aside. That's what the takeaway is. People love the fact that they get to be in front of leadership that they may have not gotten necessarily a chance to meet. And then also, and this as well as anybody, it's the camaraderie and the networking. Yeah. It's the fact that I now have a person in West Virginia that I can pick up the phone at any time because we've got this rapport and relationship. And those are the two main takeaways. It's so funny. The content doesn't even matter. I mean, it does, but it's like, those are the two main takeaways. It's the relationships that they built, the experiences that they got to have, and the exposure to upper management, upper leadership that they may not have had the opportunity for.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yep. So then where does feedback fit into this program, and is that part of the conflict management, or how do you teach people how to do that? And how do they get feedback from, let's say, this thought of giving a presentation for the first time to a CEO or a COO, somebody I'm not used to being in front of? Seems incredibly intimidating. So how does that work?
Absolutely. So that is actually a part of it. At the end of both of these programs, they do a 20-minute-ish presentation in front of an executive panel. So my boss and I, we do all we can to help them prepare. And so that's actually one of the things, like, they have to go through their presentation for she and I. And then we offer, feedback, and then they can also get, feedback from each other. But there's also opportunities. So one of the programs, they work with a mentor. So that is definite back and forth feedback. We also partner with an external executive coach, and every single person in the program gets to work with him as well. So a lot of feedback going on there. One of the actual sessions that we do is on feedback and coaching. Specifically, we look at like the GROW model when it comes to coaching, but I feel like there is feedback throughout. And even, when we get together, it's like, what's on your mind? What feedback do you, because we're always looking too for feedback. Like, did last session work? Did we need to change something? So we do kind of that mid-program survey to say, hey, how's it working? Are you getting stuff out of this? And then we also do an end of program. So I feel like it's kind of a two-way conversation at all times, because we want to make sure that, this is a big investment for them. It's a big time commitment for them. And so we want to make sure that we're delivering a product that they're getting something out of, and that it's, and then also that we're listening to what they have to say as well.
Yeah. So what's the GROW coaching model? I haven't heard of that before. Oh, I had to ask you.
I'm not going to remember the acronym, but look it up. You can literally, there's a cute little video short on it, and I would have written it down had I thought about it. But it's so appropriate.
Really?
It's so easy. It's similar to like, the STAR model, state the situation. I mean, it's along those lines, but it's very beneficial.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I will look it up. And it reminds me of, is it the branch and the tree? Do you know what I'm talking about when we talk about delegating? I think this is a model from Fierce Conversations, where is it a branch issue or a tree issue? And if it's a tree issue, then it requires you to check in with the group, because it's kind of, we're all attached and we're all moving in this direction. And if it's a branch issue, then you don't have to check in with me or get permission to do this. You can kind of move forward with it. So that's more of a delegating model, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I want to hear, because I don't know this story, I want to hear about your most powerful feedback experience. And before you start, I want you to take us back there. Like, I want you to go back there, and I want you to just take us there with you about where you are, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how it's landing as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So this would have been, and I'm going to be very generic to protect the guilty.
Okay.
So this was it was around 2014.
Okay.
And I had just started a new job. I had left a job that I had been at for since 2008, and was really looking for growth opportunities, development. I was an individual contributor and really wanted to be in leadership. And so I took this position, and I had been there for a couple of months, and I was flailing. I mean, I was struggling so bad. And so I reached out to a friend, and I was telling her the story, and I was going on and on and on and on. And she said, "Can I give you some feedback?" And I was like, "Yes, like I'm dying here." And she said, you don't feel safe." And I was like, in my head, you know how you have those, like, you think 10,000 thoughts in a second. I'm thinking, I'm not afraid the person's going to punch me or something. Like, I couldn't figure out where she was going with it. And I was like, "Say more." And she said, one of the baseline behaviors of trust is safety. And she said, "You don't feel safe with this person, therefore you don't trust this person." And so she started to ask me a sequence of questions. She said, "When you tell this person something that's going on, do you trust that it's going to leave that office?" And I was like, she probably, shouts it from the rooftop. Like, I don't feel like anything is in confidence. And she was like, so then she just kind of went into more and more detail about me not trusting this person. It was so, like, I can still feel it in my body, the way that I felt that day, because it was such a, it's not your typical, like, here's a way that you can improve, but it was such a piece of feedback and a concept that I had never experienced. I had never put two and two together of what those things meant.
Yeah.
And so for me, the way that it showed up was, honestly, it was a spiral to an extent, because I was like, just almost kind of looking back at things that I had been a part of. And it's like, oh, I didn't trust that person. Oh, I didn't. And it was really kind of the first time too, that I had heard the term safety, that kind of psychological safety. I had never really, I knew what it was. I knew what the feeling was, but I never had words for it. So she and I continued on the conversation, and I did a ton of research on trust and safety and all of those things. And one of the things that she asked me, that was kind of a result of the conversation. She said, "Do you think that this person is open to feedback?" And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I said, and so she was like, okay, well then, you got one or two ways to go. Either, give that person feedback or you've got to deal with it. And, for me, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. That person ended up leaving the company. I left a short time after and went back to where I had come from, actually. But it was for me, it was the first time in my life that I'd ever had the vocabulary for that, to understand what trust truly is. And what's interesting about that is this person broke that trust on day one, literally on day one. I went home from my very first day on that job sobbing.
Oh,
I saw a
Cari.
friend of mine. I was just like, I've made the worst mistake, blah, blah, blah. And the person on the other line, I mean, she was so kind, and she was like, change is hard. Just, give it some time or whatever. But when I backtracked to that very first day, that's exactly what happened. She broke my trust the very first day.
Wow.
And never, the thing about it was, like, she never made the effort to gain it back.
Mm-hmm.
And if she did, it was like it was so shattered that, it was almost irreparable at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's that. Like I said, it's not just a typical, hey, you should do this better, or hey, you didn't do this well. But that to me was, it was like I said, it was life altering, because I never had those words before.
Yeah. I feel this for you, Cari. As you're talking about it, I really have this reaction. It's almost like going from being unseen and not taken care of. I want to say abandoned, maybe that feels extreme, to then being seen. Like, almost the feedback that you got is just somebody seeing you in a way that you didn't even see you.
Yeah. They gave me the language.
Yeah.
To then describe the feelings that I was having. Because for me, I was taking everything so personal. I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm fitting in. I can't, all the things that I can't do. And it's just like, you don't even have the baseline of safety. How are you ever able to excel or to fit in or to do any of the things in a new role at a new company after you've been, secure at a company prior? It's like, you don't even feel safe to walk through the door. And so just to have those, and exactly to your point, like, that aha moment was like, oh my gosh, that's it.
Yeah. So how long was it before you left after that conversation?
The person that the conversation was about left the company a short time later. I would say she and I did not work together for very long. And then I was only there for a little over a year.
Okay.
Total.
So what happened on the first day?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to tell you. So during the interview process, we were talking about kind of what my first day would look like. And I showed up, and so what it was is they were doing a pilot. And what I was supposed to do, because I'd never been a part of this particular type of pilot, I was supposed to just be a observer. I was just going to be in the audience and observe and kind of see how it worked, because I would soon be training on that and teaching, kind of the facilitators how to do that well and so forth. Well, when I got there, she was like, oh, you're actually going to participate in the class today. You're going to be, because it was sales training. She's like, you're actually going to be a sales associate in this. I was just like, and you know me pretty well. Like, yes. I mean, that was all she wrote. I was just like, and the thing about it is the way that it was relayed to me was, we thought it would be funny if we did this.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
that is your worst nightmare.
Yep. So I'm literally on center stage now. We're doing role plays, and I'm having to be a part of this.
So for the listening audience, you hear Cari talk about flailing. So let me just assure you that Cari's version of flailing is not other people's versions of flailing. Cari is a hard, conscientious, thoughtful worker. And tell me if I'm misspeaking anywhere here, Cari, but you want to be prepared. You need to be prepared.
Yeah.
And so for you to show up and have somebody really, what felt like to you, disregard you and what you need, was shattering for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and I talk about the Enneagram all the time, and I'm a 3, so I'm the achiever.
My achiever friend.
That's right. That's right. But the way that it manifests for me, so there's your internal struggle, and then there's the external way that it shows up. So externally, you're not going to probably know that I'm rattled.
Yeah.
But internally, on the inside, I am absolutely coming unglued, because what it means to be the way that I process things like that from the in Enneagram speak is I have a huge fear of failure.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have a long list of failures.
No.
And I believe, again, this is my irrational brain, I believe that people, loved ones, whatever, the world only accepts me for the things that I do and who I am. Like because of the job that I have, or the title that I have, or the car that all of those things. It's like, in my irrational brain, I think, oh gosh, if I didn't have this, if I weren't on Colette's podcast, she wouldn't be my friend. I mean, those are the irrational thoughts that drive that. And it's that way with feedback for me too. Externally, I tell people all the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm open to feedback. Internally, I'm dying.
Girl.
Internally, I'm going down a spiral of, oh my gosh, I didn't do well, and now I'm failing, and I'm going to lose my. I mean, it's a panic.
You're in really good company with that. You brave woman, for saying it out loud, because so that's kind of how all of us, I don't want to say all of us, maybe there's some real good, great exceptions out there, but for most of us, we're supposed to be okay with feedback in order to be a good professional. And so out of everybody, you're not going to break that mold. You're going to be like, oh yeah, give me feedback. I'm great with it.
Absolutely.
But of course you shrivel because you're trying so hard to keep it together and to achieve and to perform. And so it's got to be extra hard for you, Cari.
Absolutely. I will say, one of the things that you've taught me in just thinking about, like, because I try to ask for feedback, like if I've presented or facilitated or something, but if I'm coming off of a high, meaning it was a great session, I don't want feedback.
No.
And that has been a kind of a boundary that I have put up now. It's like, tomorrow we can talk about it. But right now I feel so great. I don't want to know this nitpicky nitpicky thing that I forgot to cover or whatever.
Yeah.
That's been a huge shift for me, because it's like, I can go home and process it and, be okay with it or whatever. And just bask in the glow of how great it feels. We can talk about the other side of it tomorrow.
Yes. I love that, Cari. Setting healthy boundaries for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
So this just happened, or it would have been my feedback story. This
Okay.
literally just happened about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't processed it enough. So that's why I'm just going to tell you the story. I can't really, I don't know how to react to it.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned a couple of times, the fear of failure. So one of the things that I facilitate in my job is a behavior assessment. We talk all about it. And I was at an offsite leadership development, offsite team development. And I get to the part where I'm talking about fear of failure. And I say that, I have my little shtick. I was like, oh my gosh, I have such a, high fear of failure. I don't know why. I don't have this big, long list of failures, blah, blah, blah. This gentleman raises his hand and he said, can I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah. And he said, do you ever wonder what you're missing out on because you're scared to fail?
Oh, huh.
I was just
damn.
And I was just like, that's 2 weeks ago and I'm still processing. I'm still processing.
Wow.
I'm processing my whole life. Like, was there something?
What did you say? What did you say to him?
I honestly, I don't even remember. Like, I feel like I blacked out because I was so taken aback by it. Nobody's ever asked. I've taught that class 1,000 times. Nobody's ever said that.
That is a fantastic question.
Yeah. Talk about some feedback on the spot.
Right. I wonder that. So you and I are so alike in terms of our values about things, and we're so different in this way in how we function. Like I go through the world and I just want to be myself. And if you give me a job to do, I'm not going to feel as good about my performance in that job as I will feel if I'm just being myself. Right? You're shaking your head like I
Nope.
don't understand that at
No,
all.
don't get it.
Meanwhile, you are an absolutely beautiful human being, you know? And so you also are like a 10 out of 10 in my mind, as just like a awesome person. But for you, just being a good human is not enough.
No.
What that struggle to understand then what is enough. So because you are so enough to me, just sitting there in your cute little glasses. So then what is enough? When is it enough? When do you ever earn a 10 out of 10 on the scale?
Gosh. I think there are times that I do. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like an example. Like there are times. So I think back, but for me, it's all about like the accomplishment. That's what makes me feel 10. It's not just living and breathing in the world, but like I can experience something and be proud of it and be like, oh, that's it. I feel great. Like I can be on a high. Like I think about, going back to our leadership development programs, we, I said we run them annually. So we had one graduate a couple of months ago or about a month ago, and they have to do these presentations at the end, and it's in front of an executive team. And as you know, public speaking is such a fear for so many people. And when I tell you that this group crushed it, I was like a proud mama. And it was like, and my boss and I had this conversation, it was days on end that I felt that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But again, it's not just being in the world. You know what I mean? It's because of that accomplishment. So I can't think of a time like just sit. I mean, I'm sure that there are. It's not like I'm constantly in a state of like conflict with that, but I can't just like pinpoint and say, oh yeah, this day.
Yeah.
So
and two, also, you know this, but I just want to clarify. I'm not saying that my way is better. I love my achiever friends because I'm in awe of everything you do. Like you're nonstop. You're constantly doing something, achieving something, working towards something. And I'm just like, well, I happen to be too, but not on purpose.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
So for you, is it the actual work or is it the recognition of the work?
I think it's a combination because I do love that type, leader development, program management. I love that. But it is also, again, that recognition in my irrational brain, my worth is tied to that.
Okay.
So if I'm not getting that, therefore the alternative means my worth is not there.
So what happens to you internally when because I've been on this train too, and I know so many people have this like validation that you don't even realize you're getting or you're needing until you're not getting it anymore. And then you're like, am I doing a good job? Am I competent at what I do?
Right.
Who am I if somebody's not telling me that I'm doing a great job or doing something good? So what happens for you when you are not getting the validation either through your actual work or through recognition from other people?
Yeah, that's a tough place for me. That becomes almost kind of the snowball effect, and imposter syndrome sets in. And exactly to your point, like the fear of why am I not? What is happening? What does this mean? Am I, I mean, I can go 0 to doomsday in like, 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can absolutely spiral when it comes to that. And so, the thing about it is though, I will say for me, this is an area that I'm so well aware of. I can name it. I can talk about it. So for me, it has gotten a little bit easier to maneuver and to recover from. Like I don't stay down long, if that makes sense. Like I can get myself back up, but it's still amazes me at what this little brain can come up with, the things that it can say and do to just destroy any sort of confidence or ego or, whatever. It's amazing to me. But I do think through just practice and understanding of it, I do think I've gotten better at the recovery.
Yeah.
And I don't stay down I don't stay down long, if that makes sense.
So what do you do to cope? Is it that you work harder? Is that do you ask for what you need? Are you afraid to ask for it because you're not sure it's okay? Do you know what
So
I
it's
mean?
interesting. I had a conversation recently with someone, and I made the comment. I said, I have to advocate for myself here.
Mhm.
So I'm learning to do that. I'm
Yeah.
learning to say, this is not okay. This is not what I want. This is not working for me. Therefore, I need to shift here. And I need to, because I was like, nobody's going to speak up for me other than me. And
Right.
so I have gotten a little bit better with asking for what I want. It is very hard for me. It's like there are days and weeks and hours and all of the things that go into it from a mental standpoint.
Mhm.
One of the things I do as well, I work out. That's as much mental health for me as it is physical health. I mean, I don't the physical, I mean, obviously I want to stay in shape or whatever, but it is honestly to relieve stress, anxiety, all of those things. So I think that making that a priority is huge for me. And it has to be one of the things that I found out, it has to be part of my life. I can't
Yeah.
let that go. If I do, I've done it before, so I know the ramifications of it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can't let that aspect of it go. So there are some non-negotiables that I've
Yeah.
kind of put into place, but a lot of it honestly is just I love the Enneagram. So
Mhm.
I do, listen to podcasts and things like that. I went to a symposium recently and just learning about it, kind of going back to my example of my feedback story, having the language and knowing how it's showing up in my body, what it looks like
Yeah.
physically, being able to put a name to it, that's made a huge impact on me. And I feel like I've put effort into that because
Mhm.
it did not come naturally.
No.
Yeah.
I've seen a change in you. We've been
Yeah.
friends for what, 15 years or
No,
more?
honey,
I
it's
would like
longer
to
than
say
that.
it's more. Okay, 20. Yes.
Yeah, it's over 20 now.
Oh, damn it, Gary. But I've seen, even recently, actually, I've seen
Yeah.
that in you. And one of the things I love about you is your self-awareness. And you're
Yes.
like, damn it, I'm driving myself crazy. And you have this recognition that you are a part of this
Yes.
system and this process.
Yes. Yes.
I'm wondering, with your feedback story, did your boss on the first day have any clue what she did to you mentally?
I'd like to say no, but the fact that she said we thought it would be funny, it felt icky.
That's gross. Yeah, that
You
is
know what I
one
mean?
thing. Right. You're
That's the
right.
thing. It's just like, yeah, it's my very first day. And the thing about it was, like, I'd had conversations with her about, I've been in this last job for so long. These people are like my family. And she was like,
Mhm.
oh, we'll be like your family too, and blah, blah, blah. And
Your dysfunctional family.
right,
Yeah.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I thought about too, not necessarily about that story, but like about feedback in general and why it's so, like, I don't think anybody just thrives in it. And I was thinking about it in the context of when you're younger. If you think about how much, just as a child, as you're learning, how much feedback is thrown at you moment to moment. Don't do this, do this. You think about in school, like I really thought about that just thinking about this podcast. I was like, why is it so hard? And I believe that if you don't receive feedback at an early age,
Mhm.
and it's not even appropriate, it's just all of it at once. I feel like that's part of it. I don't know
Mhm.
what your thoughts are about that.
I love that you're bringing this up, because I also feel, at least for myself, that that is absolutely what it comes back to. It's this old thing: when somebody gives me feedback or when I know I'm going to get it, I have this like instant, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me, inherently. Not
Yes.
that I can't fix, but, as somebody who just likes to kind of be themselves in the world, it means that I can't be myself in the world and still be
Oof.
accepted, still
Yeah.
belong. I have to shift a little bit to be the acceptable,
Yeah.
presentable me. And it hurts. It does hurt. And I don't mean to, I get by, and I can't imagine what kind of feral person I would be without having taken
Right.
some of that feedback. And
Right.
every single time it it's it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has to be rooted somewhere.
It does. And I agree with you. It's like, we have a 6-year-old. I have a 6-year-old. Me and you
Yeah.
have a 6-year-old. I have a 6-year-old. And my husband and I, like, I'll hear both of us just constantly, are we giving him feedback when he's quiet and doing absolutely, everything perfect? No, we're like, whew, let's take a look at the phone, respond to some texts,
Yeah.
whatever. But as soon as that behavior turns into something that's not acceptable, we are all over it. It's
Yeah.
obnoxious. It's oppressive. It is, thank God he has an attitude and a good, strong ability to set boundaries for himself and speak up,
Yeah.
because he's really helped us not run him over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a conversation with my sister-in-law recently. I'd spent some time with my oldest niece, and we just had such a great time. And she's just first of all, she's beautiful, she's kind, she's thoughtful, she's all of those things. And so I was telling my sister-in-law this. I was just like, I just want you to know, like, she's just such a good human being. And she made the comment, she was like, I need to tell her that more
Yeah.
than telling her, did you put your dishes away? Did you, like, she's like, that is such a lesson for me. She's like, I have got to she needs that kind of feedback, not the kind of feedback that I'm giving. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I mean,
we've learned so much from the
that's
time
right.
that you and I grew up until now raising kids. There's a
Yeah.
lot different,
Yeah.
we're not spanking, we're
Yeah.
not, even timeout is shaming and
Oh, yeah.
separating. So if you don't act the way I want you to, then you have to
Right.
go away from me. And when I feel like you're ready to come back, I'll bring you back into the fold. And there's, right, just the
Yeah.
way that things have always been done for us. There is data behind it about why it doesn't work really well and what
Yeah.
else works better. And this positive reinforcement thing of calling out what's good, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to put energy into something that's already
Absolutely.
working when you have so
Yeah.
much that's not.
Yes. Yeah. And you think about how that even boils over into like the work environment. You think about as
Yeah.
being a member of leadership, you don't spend the time on people who are doing well.
No.
You're like, oh, they're good. They'll be fine. I'm not going to worry about them. You're spending the time on your troublemakers.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the
totally.
parallel of that is interesting.
It is. And so, like, what's the solution?
Mm,
I mean, for me, this is why Open 360 is a thing, and it's why it's employee driven,
right.
because it's putting the feedback initiation into the hands of the employee, not the leader.
Yeah.
So the employee can say, I need something from you right now, versus wait for you to notice good
Yeah.
or something not good.
Right.
But
It
what else,
almost allows
Cari?
them to take their power back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And also helps leaders, because leaders don't, you know, like what we're doing now is just peanut butter spread your attention to everybody to make
Yeah.
sure everybody gets the same amount of attention.
Yeah.
But not everybody needs the same
Right.
thing and the same amount of attention. So
Right.
if you allow employees to come to you as the leader when they need something and teach
Yeah.
them that it's okay and trust them to do that,
Yeah.
then you could be really strategic about how you're using your time with your employees and making sure
Yeah.
that people are getting what they need. They're
Yeah.
not all getting the same thing.
Right. Right. Because
Yeah.
it's not the same for everybody, to your point. It's just not.
No.
Some people don't need any of it. Some people need more of it. It's just not going to be the same. And it's not a one-stop shop. You can't do that. You can't treat everybody the same.
So
And I think
what
that's part of the struggle too, is people are just like, oh, I don't know, that means I need to get to know people. I need to actually understand people. I think that's part of the struggle too, is it's almost, I feel like
You
societal
said
pressure.
that.
I feel like we've put that pressure on people, like, oh, that's hippy dippy. I don't want all that feel good, touchy feely stuff, where it's like, no, I just need to know what motivates you. I
Yeah.
just need to know how you want to have feedback. I mean, it's not, I think we've just put such a, like, it's so difficult or so stigmatized almost, that people are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm scared to ask those questions. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was in a one of our cohort classes, and we had a gentleman that said, I'm not going to ask my employees that. We were talking about emotional intelligence. And he was like, I'm not going to, and this is a like VP level of the company. And he's like, I'm not going to ask my employees that. I don't need to know that. And we're like, yes, you do.
Know
You
what?
need to
What was the
understand that.
question?
It was just like getting to know somebody, to
Okay.
understand, like, they were having a bad day or whatever. And he's like, well, I heard something about her kid, and I'm just like, you need to know these things as her leader. Like,
Yeah.
people, that's one of the things that I love about Brene Brown, is she talks about, your whole person shows up at work. We
Yeah.
can't leave the fight with the spouse or the bad
Mhm.
traffic or the whatever at the door. It's like, we need that ability and permission to be our full selves. And if
Yes.
you as a leader can't even, ask me about what's going, that's a big misstep, big
It
time.
is. It is. And it's tough because I really think, especially at work, because we've set it up like this, structure replaces skill.
Ooh,
So that if you have a leader who doesn't feel confident and doesn't
yeah,
have the skill to have conversations, they will overly rely on some sort of structure that, or we as
yeah,
organizations willingly provide
yep,
to help them limp through, as opposed to gain the actual skill.
yeah,
And it's, who's going to say that? I can't say that I would raise my hand if I was a leader and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable having feedback conversations with my team.
yeah,
Like, that's going to put me out there on the
that's right.
line as somebody who is not equipped to be a leader. And
Yep,
so, how will we ever fix this problem if we don't make it okay to not
right.
know, and don't reward people do reward people who raise their hand and say, I need help
Yeah,
because I really do want to do this well.
right. And the thing about it is like, you're not the only one that's feeling that way.
No.
If one person spoke up, you would have the whole room raise their hand nearly,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
everybody feels that way. But to your point, we haven't been we haven't been given, I mean, kind of going back to the story that I shared, people don't feel safe.
Yeah.
People don't feel psychologically safe or have trust in organizations or groups or other people or whatever enough to want to bring that part of themselves forward.
Yeah.
Because for so long it's been seen as weak, or, that you're ill prepared, or, whatever adjective you want to add there. But it's not beneficial to organizations if you're not doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, think about you and I too. Just the things, if we were not afraid of judgment
Yeah.
about who we are as professionals, for the things that
Yes.
we didn't pick up along the way, for the gaps that we have in our performance, to raise our hand and say, I'm really good at what I do, but I need some help in this particular area.
Yeah.
That's how you get better at things. If
That's right.
nobody raises their hand, then it's going to stay exactly the same.
Yeah. And I still have that fear. I absolutely still have that fear of being like, I'm going to, like, I don't want to raise my hand. I'm scared to. Even I was thinking about it. I'm doing some training for a new assessment tool that we're using. And it was online, and they asked a question. I was like, I think I know the answer, but I don't want to say, what if that, in my head, that split second of, what if it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And finally I spoke up, and, whatever. But I'm just like, this is so, am I 5? Like,
No.
it's the same pattern though. It's so, just like you used to be afraid to raise your hand in school. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's the
Yeah.
same cycle.
So true. And you
Oh,
just don't realize, well, we do realize now, but it's
yeah,
hard when other people aren't raising their hand and other people aren't saying, I need help. And they're kind of have this professionalism thing down really well, where the facade is strong,
yeah. Yeah. And I think what'll be interesting too is, as every generation comes along, I mean, when the millennials hit the workforce, it was like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
and now it's Gen Z and blah, blah, blah. And you just hope that, because there's been so many good things out of a new generation that they're bringing into specifically. And I'll say this selfishly, newer generations want development.
Yeah.
When they come into an organization, they're like, what's your career planning? What's your
Mhm.
development? So that's good. And my hope is that they also want feedback. They're asking for that. My hope is that it doesn't get stifled by, Gen Xers or the baby boomers or whatever, that they move away from it. Like, keep
Yeah.
pushing through that. Keep pushing and asking for what you need. It's so
Mhm.
important, and not to let that go.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that also requires everybody to be a little bit flexible and saying, maybe I knew how it worked 10 years ago or
Right.
5 years ago, but I don't know how it works now. So I could use some help with that, and really not stripping people away of the expertise that they do bring for wanting to stay current and
Right.
stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have this question for you, Carrie.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Of course.
So, for going back to your feedback story,
Yep.
if you were to have that experience again right now, with
Mhm.
the experience that you have, with the mojo that you have right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
what would you say to your boss, or how would you handle it?
That's a great question. So, if I'm being honest, I don't know that I would do anything differently
Mhm.
because, gosh, it's one of those things. Like, I want to say I wouldn't do anything differently because I felt so unsafe.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing, like somebody asked me recently, like, what's your biggest regret, or, what would you do differently? It's like, well, if I did that differently, then I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
So is there something, I would say, if I would do one thing different, I would have at least asked her, are you open to feedback?
Mhm.
Because I will say this, she was telling me a story about when she left the company. She was telling me kind of about her interview process with her new job. And it was kind of like almost like a networking event, but like every person that she was meeting with was asking her kind of the same questions over and
Mhm.
over again. And I told her, I said, well, they're looking for consistency. They're looking to make sure that just based on my title, you're not telling me something different. And it was such a light bulb moment for her. She was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that's what they're looking for. And so, I don't know how she answered. She obviously got the job, so I don't know how she answered the questions. But I think, because is she aware of that? I mean,
Mhm.
she's older than I am. She has more experience than I am. So, it's kind of that old enough to know better.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have at least asked. And that's what the person I was having the conversation with, she's like, do you feel comfortable asking that? And at the time I didn't. I
Yeah.
feel like I was in such a low spot. I had zero confidence in myself and my decision making. I was just like, I have made the worst decision. Why did I ever, all of the things.
Mhm.
But I do wish I would have been brave enough to just say, are you open to the feedback?
Yeah.
And if she would have said no, that would have been fine. But honestly, like, I don't know what I would have said if she'd have been like, sure.
Yeah. Do you think future focused feedback would have helped you there, in terms of, you don't have to say, you are such a
Mm.
thoughtless
Right.
human being, and what you thought was a joke is really
Yeah.
hard for me. But instead saying, because this is what we recommend in the future,
Yeah.
in the future, I would really appreciate it if you gave me notice. I really like to be
Mm.
prepared, and I
Yeah.
don't like going into, especially
Yeah.
my first day, not understanding what's expected
Yeah.
of me,
Yeah. It's interesting. She was kind of the hiring manager, and then there was another person who I became great friends with. And I did tell her that kind of after that person had left. We had a
Mhm.
conversation about that. And I explained that to her. I was like, you have no idea how bad that wrecked me.
Yeah.
What you didn't know about me on day one is I don't like surprises. I
Mhm.
like to feel prepared, all of the things. And she was very, remorseful about it. She's like, "Oh my gosh!" And at the time, it was just a joke. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? but it's like you don't understand the ripple effect of that. And so she was so kind and thoughtful in her almost apology. You know, it wasn't even
Yeah.
her, but she had a lot of remorse about it. She's like, I never thought about that. But I love what you said, because I think I could have even said, you know, when you think about onboarding people moving forward,
Mhm.
you know, there's probably like a 30-day limit of just like status quo that would be beneficial. You know?
Yes, don't put them on, performance mode on the very first day at work.
Yeah.
And I think too, almost to your detriment, Cari, you really are good at powering through to the point where most people would not
Right.
even consider it's an issue. And so they're not learning from it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The bad side of that, though, is the physical effects it has on me.
Oh,
Like the stress and the anxiety and the things like that, the things that I take on. You're 1,000% right. I can think of a time that you and I were together and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know you were upset about that. And I can hide it really well, but internally I'm on fire. And so
yeah.
that's the thing. It's like finding the sweet spot of that and the balance of that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's great to put on the happy face or whatever. And internally you're a wreck, and that, you know, that hurts your nervous system and all of the things. So it's like,
Right.
there's a price for that. And so to figure out where to let that go almost.
Yeah. And I think it is the safety thing, because it's almost like you can't get the repair and the care that you so absolutely need in those moments when people don't know to repair.
Yeah.
And it may be, oh, I should know, or you should know, or, I mean, definitely I have friends where I'm like, okay, but you should have known that.
Yeah, right.
But if you don't speak up, then it strikes me like, for your own self, it's not hurting other people
Right.
necessarily. It's keeping you from getting the care that you
That's right.
deserve.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's definitely like a something that I'm really trying to work on, is to like be present and be like, no, I'm not going to let that slide. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask the question, or, you know, whatever. And I'm definitely not an expert at it by any stretch, but it's at least in my stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
So I know that I may not ever act on it, but it's like, I'm at least thinking about it. I'm at
You
least aware of it enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you are taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And if somebody else chooses to take care of you or to not take care of you, that's on them. But you're
Right.
doing what you need to do to
Right.
get what you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cari, I love you.
I love you. I'm
do.
so I'm just, I could just gush over how proud I am of you and all of the things that you're doing. The fact that you would ask me to be on this podcast is like dream come true. I'm so honored. I have so much respect for you and the work that you're doing and the human being that you are. And I love you. And I'm just so grateful to be here today.
Thank you, Cari. I feel absolutely the same. You are beautiful. You are wicked smart. You are fun and funny. And I'm so happy to know you for beyond 20 years, which I can't believe that's
20
the
plus.
case.
Yeah.
20 plus. And seriously,
Exactly.
what I appreciate most about our conversation today is that I know you, and you really stepped out, I feel like, in terms of vulnerability and sharing.
Yeah.
I'm like blown away by you, Cari.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for creating the space that I feel safe enough to do it.
Yeah. Well, everybody else who's listening, we will talk to you next week, and hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.